Well,
All
I
right.
believe it's your turn, Al, so take it away.
I think this is the last game where I kind of picked something because it's what I remember the most versus like actually feeling very strongly about it.
Hmm.
So the Minish Cap, I haven't played that game the longest of the whole Zelda series. And so I chose Deepwood Shrine because it looks cool. I like that you are like this little tiny little bitty Link, even though he appears like, normal size to us. I like the item. I like the little mushroom launching where you pull the mushrooms and you launch yourself
Hmm.
over a gap. I think the puzzles were kind of fun, and it's just something I remember. Like the only thing I remember because I watched this portion of the Minish Cap run at the marathon every year. It's so
Right.
fun and chaotic watching everybody be like, "Oh my God, okay, Andy Spiteri is the first person into the Deepwood Shrine," and then whoever is the last, they get eliminated, and it's such a fun time. So that's what I remember most about the Minish Cap.
If the Minish Cap was a Pokemon, it would be like a water grass type Pokemon. Very no, that dungeon specifically rather would be a water
I
grass
get you.
type. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great dungeon. That's not a bad answer at all. I think that Minish Cap is like the opposite of Wind Waker. I think every dungeon is awesome, actually, every dungeon. And I was having a hard time because I was like, I think there's merits to each dungeon, and I was kind of going back and forth, and like each dungeon has a very unique item, has a very unique boss, and like a very unique gimmick. So I think that there's no wrong answers. I would say that I was considering the Palace of Winds, but I think it's just a bit too long. So I wasn't going to go with that. But I think the other four, like all of them, could be the answer. But I ended up going with. I'm almost second guessing myself as I say this because there's so many good options. But Al, I ended up going with the Temple of Droplets, and I
Okay.
think that one stands out. First of all, just because I like ice dungeons. I really love like the ice block puzzles that show up in that game. I like ice block puzzles just period. But this one is structured in a little bit of a different way. Whereas like you start the dungeon and you almost immediately get the boss key, and you're just kind of like, oh, this is weird, and then you go and you find the frozen Octorok, and then that's pretty much when the dungeon actually begins, and it's kind of like it's divided into like the left side and the right side, and you have to do one side first, and then you have to do the other side after, and I think that the item that you get is pretty cool. It's just a lantern, but the way that they use it in the Minish Cap in conjunction with like the ice dungeon, I think is very fun. It's got some like callbacks too, to the first dungeon where like you have the caterpillar boss come back, you have the giant chew come back, you have some of the other enemies from like Cave of Flames come back. So there's a lot of like callbacks in this dungeon that kind of make it, they make it like pay homage to the dungeons that have come before. And you also have like the interesting like, like you can shine light down. Like there's different places you can bomb and like get a fan to, or a place to like get light to melt ice. There's just lots of like little intricate puzzles that you can do. I would say, and also by the way, you finally have like some integration of the Forest Sword, where I want to say at this point you only have two links, but I could be wrong. Maybe you have three. But yeah, it's just like it's a very fun dungeon, and I think that the final boss fight is actually like, quite challenging. It's a harder fight than I think you would think if you were to say like the boss of this dungeon is a big Octorok, because like he goes crazy, he's moving, there's boulders falling everywhere. It's actually like a fairly tough fight, but that would be my answer. I think my second pick was Fortress of Winds. Because again, Bongo Bongo comes back in that dungeon. Not quite Bongo Bongo, but I think that might be the best boss fight in the game. So, shout out to Fortress of Winds, but Temple of Droplets is where it was at.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay.
Okay, so it's my turn, right?
Yep.
Okay. Oh boy. So we're
Mhm.
we're talking Phantom Hourglass. I didn't even bother looking up what this dungeon was called, to be honest with you.
Are we
Um,
on Phantom Hourglass or Twilight Princess?
Oh, you're right. Okay, thank God. You're right. I skipped Twilight Princess. I promise that was not intentional because I think Twilight Princess has incredible dungeons.
Yep.
Some incredible dungeons. Others not so much.
Mm.
But the dungeons that are awesome are very awesome. I'm taking the lowest possible hanging fruit here, so I mean, this is not going to surprise anybody. However, it's got to be Arbiter's Grounds. It's
Okay.
such a fantastic dungeon. The layout of it, I mean, it's kind of like a a ripoff in a way of the Forest Temple, and like you kind of have the same gimmick where you have to fight the four pose and like do all that stuff. But like once you get to like the inner sanctum, of Arbiter's Grounds. It's like it's very cool, and once you get the spinner, it's just like there might not be a more fun item in the series than the spinner. There really might not be. The boss fight is, Star-Lord is one of the best bosses in the series. He might be the best, actually. So, yeah, I mean, like, really, this dungeon is kind of a mixture in a lot of ways of the Forest Temple and the Spirit Temple, which are my two favorite dungeons. So, yeah, this is a no-brainer pick for me, Arbiter's Grounds.
Considering Arbiter's Grounds too, because I really like the spinner. But I feel like the dungeon overall is just kind of it's fine. It's not like a horrible dungeon, and so I don't know. I feel like I mostly just like it because of the spinner, and you don't even get the spinner until much later in the dungeon, and the boss fight is fantastic. So I went with something else, and I don't think this is actually like a top pick for many people. I don't hear a lot of people say very positive things about this dungeon, but I really like the Temple of Time.
Okay.
I think the item is cool. Like you really only use it once, except for maybe some like stuff in the outer world and the overworld and stuff. But the primary focus is you go up to the top and you grab a statue with the item and you bring it back down, solving puzzles both ways, with and without that statue, in order to get it down there so that you could go fight the boss. And I think that it's a very aesthetically pleasing dungeon. I like
It's very sleek.
I like like it's very regal, sleek looking. I don't know how else to describe it. And then, of course, the boss fight, even though it's just Goma, like Armor Goma, there's something kind of monumental, like massive about fighting a giant spider. And you get to use the statues with that item to kind of help you. And then I feel like the end with the eyeball is kind of like dumb and gimmicky, but like still, it's just
but
like...
Jalhalla is awesome?
I said Jalhalla is fun. I didn't say he was like awesome or epic. Like I think he's comedic and fun to play, like fun to fight. But it's just it feels very epic, like I'm fighting like Shelob or something. You know what I mean? So I do like that boss fight, even though it's like I get like chills thinking about a giant spider. But yeah, I feel like that's my favorite dungeon from Twilight Princess. I usually look forward to getting to it. And then that's about the point of the game where I'm like, okay, I'm done, because City in the Sky is horrendous.
Yeah, so. That's a tough one. I agree. I love Temple of Time. And I agree also. I think that maybe this is changing, actually, because I feel like for a long time I heard people say that Temple of Time was no good. And I don't know if I hear that as much anymore. I mean, a lot of people say it's not good because of like the boss fight, which... Fair enough. Like that, it's pathetically easy, that boss fight, but it's a very smart dungeon. Like the way that you have to go up and then like go down, but it's like completely different. It's like watching Fight Club or like one of those movies where there's a twist at the end and like you can rewatch it and it's completely different because you're looking out for like other things.
Right.
Or like Knives Out maybe is a more contemporary example. But yeah, I love that. Would probably be after Snow Peak and after Arbiter's Grounds. That would be my next favorite dungeon from Twilight Princess. And so, just to hear me say it, man, some of the dungeons of Twilight Princess are so awesome. They're so incredible. It's just like once you kind of get past the really awesome dungeons, there's like a big drop to like the bad ones. Yeah. The real bad ones.
I would say that the dungeons are not my favorite aspect of Twilight Princess. I really like the story and stuff. Most of those dungeons I feel like are a huge chore to me, so I struggle with that a little bit, but I really like Temple of Time, and I'm glad it's like one of the later ones too, because it kind of keeps the momentum going. Except for getting to it, kind of crushes the momentum. The getting to City in the Sky was the momentum crusher. Yeah. It's been a while since I played that game too. All right.
Maybe you should play this year the marathon for 12 hours.
No, okay. That's not happening.
Okay.
All right, Phantom Hourglass next. I did have a pick for this. I really like... I'd be curious to see if we did not favorite, like our least favorite dungeons in a future episode, but because I definitely have one for Phantom Hourglass. But my favorite, I think, is Goron Temple. I really like that, even though the item is like a bomb chew, I really like it as an item for Phantom Hourglass because you get to draw its path. And I think that meant, like, I feel like that's the best way to use bomb chews, because otherwise I feel like bomb chews are really obnoxious, like an Ocarina of Time, etc.
Yes.
Gone Goron, you got your little Goron buddy that you can switch between, which I feel is reminiscent to when you were helping Cafe get the mask, the Sun's mask, I think, in Majora's Mask. And then also Dongarongo is such a fun fight. I love fighting Dongarongo, I think, and plus his name is awesome. So I really like the Goron Temple the best out of all those in Phantom Hourglass.
I'm glad that you said that, because I also picked the Goron Temple, and it's like, I guess it's not the only dungeon I remember, because I remember the ghost ship, but like I thought that it was very fun, like using your little Goron buddy as well. And I will say, so I take a lot of shots at Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks on this show, and justifiably so, by the way. But I agree. I think that bomb chews in this game are spectacular. Like it's a very awesome way to use them, and it's frustrating when you throw a bomb chew somewhere and it just goes like completely away from where you want it to go.
If you're slightly angled, you're like, okay, I want this to go straight. It goes like this, very slowly, and you're just like, oh, that was painful, and then you have to reset yourself up.
Yeah, so I mean, I can't really say that I think much of like the dungeon aesthetic, because it looks like every other dungeon in the game. Actually, it's just like, I don't know, but I do think that controlling the Goron is fun. I think that the boss was fun. So yeah, but I would give a shout out to the Ghost Ship, because I think that's a pretty decent dungeon as well. Hey everyone! If you enjoyed this clip and want to see more of the Zelda Cast, make sure to head over to your favorite podcast platform of choice and subscribe. There are over 200 episodes in the vault that will provide you with hundreds of hours of Zelda content for you to enjoy. You can listen to us when you're on a walk, fighting Ganon, trying to sleep, whatever. And if you want to see these shows as they happen, make sure to head over to twitch.tv/the Zelda Cast, where you can watch our beautiful faces talk about Zelda every single week. Don't miss out, and we'll see you next time.